Hey, it's that time again where I do another tasting video, and this time I got a pretty special treat. We have not just the three, but we actually have 8 total whiskeys to try. The first 3 are going to be alternative grains. Traditional whiskey, is made out of corn. It's going to be made out of some different kind of unique ones. And then we also are going to try 5 different whiskeys that are from a combination of Asia and what they call Oceania. So those are from mostly Asia, and then there's one Aussie one in the mix there. But I'll go into everything. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about how it came to be, talk about the product, the company, go through all those things like I have in my previous ones. And then once we do that with each one, me and Lindsay are going to give our impressions on the taste and the flavors. We have very different palates when it comes to whiskey, so you're going to get some interesting impressions. But we'll go through everything here in a second, and you'll get to check it out. So the first ones that we're going to look at is a set of 3, and it is kind of grains gone wild, if you will, singing in the grain. We're going to keep doing the grain puns. It's going to keep happening. But we got 3 here. They're all American made, but they are all made out of different grains than normal whiskey. If you're a whiskey aficionado, you know that there's only one grain normally used for a whiskey, and that, of course, is corn. Now, we're not talking about rye, because rye is made out of 51% rye, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about corn whiskey. This is not that. Actually, all 3 of these are very different. You have one from Koval, that is a millet whiskey, so that's going to be pretty interesting. You have another one from Roughstock out in Montana, and they're doing a Montana wheat whiskey. And then the last one, of course, is Dryfly, which is a Triticale whiskey. And if you have no idea what Triticale is, don't worry about it, because I had no idea either, and I had to look that one up. But it's a combination of grains, and we'll get into that when we go to taste test though. And then the second set I have is this beautiful 5-shooter of super difficult to get your hands on whiskeys, at least if you're in the United States. By super difficult, I mean basically none of them are actually sold here, except for maybe 1, maybe 2. The rest of them you pretty much can't get in the U.S. But they 2 of them are from Taiwan, which is a super newcomer to the whiskey game. Only the past few years, a pretty major distiller opened up there, and it's supposed to be producing some good stuff, so check that out. We have Rampur, which is an Indian whiskey. Surprising fun fact, India is the world's #1 consumer of whiskey. But their whiskeys, generally because of the warm climate and cheaper ingredients, aren't really regarded as good. This one, however, is considered pretty decent. And then, of course, we have another Nikka. If you watch my previous videos, you saw me taste test a bunch of Japanese whiskeys, and 2 of those were Nikkas. And then you have from down under, you have Hellyers, which is a 10-year-old one from the land of koala bears and everything trying to kill you. So we'll taste test those as well, go through all of them. Unfortunately, most of those I'm not actually going to have prices or anything for you because, again, you can't buy them here. So should be interesting. All of this stuff, of course, straight from that I can't pronounce in Slovenia, and straight to me. So I'm super excited to check this stuff out. And let's get going. So the first offering that I have tonight is from Koval. It's a millet-based whiskey, so that's going to be kind of different. Koval is actually hails from the Windy City, so from Chicago, about, was it, like 4 hours away from me? Something like that, 4.5-hour drive. Craft distilling in Chicago used to be really big back around Prohibition. Ironically, in the middle of Prohibition, it was pretty popular. Not so much anymore. In fact, it wasn't until 2008 that a couple of Austrian immigrants, actually, the Kovals, obviously, decided to open up a distillery in Chicago. And they make, what's really interesting about them is they make whiskeys, but they do a farm to bottle approach. So they handle everything. Top to bottom, all of it, the grain, the mash process, the distilling, the bottling, it's all done in-house. So that's pretty unique, even for craft distillery. They're regarded as one of the top craft distilleries in the United States now. But Robert and Sanat Koval from Salzburg, Austria, are the ones who decided to open that place up. And bizarrely, this whiskey is in fact kosher and certified organic. Neither of which I give a crap about, but in case you do, now you know. So we're going to taste test this one. Again, it's made out of millet grain instead of corn or rye, which is usually what most people are used to. So I'll start, and then Lindsay will go. She's got her little shot of it there in a nice rock and roll Hall of Fame shot glass. So we're going to try this sucker out and see what the Koval Millet Whiskey is all about. In case anyone cares, it is 80 proof. So. Yeah, that is really smooth. A little bit fruity. Major flavor notes are supposed to be like pear caramel, and I definitely get the caramel, which is odd. But yeah, very, very fruity. Very fruity. It's not bad. Try it. Let me know. What do you think?
It's very fruity smelling.
You get a little bit of oak, and it is aged in American oak barrels, white oak barrels.
Yeah.
Remarkably smooth, and I think like orchard fruity.
Yeah.
Because it's like an apple pear orchard fruit is what I'm getting out of that.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, it's a little smoky in the beginning. Then it gets fruity. And then it almost gets a little smoky at the end.
Yeah, it's, well, their flavor spiral includes apple, apricot, peach, pear, and you definitely get all that. A little bit of vanilla, and you definitely get that, and I think that's that white oak, same with the smokiness. I'm going to get some oak out of it. And then you get a little bit of the grain flavor. You do get a little bit of millet flavor, which is kind of interesting. That one's surprisingly quite good. I do have a price on that bottle. If you want to pick up a bottle of Koval, if you can find it, if you're in the area, you're looking at right around $50 a bottle, just under. So it's pretty reasonably priced, not terribly expensive, pretty comparable to most decent bottles of whiskey, really. And I got to say, that actually... that was nice. That is a nice way to start this one out. Alright, so the next one that we're going to follow that up with is Roughstock. Roughstock is made from Montana spring wheat. Roughstock Distillery is out of Bozeman, Montana. So we're going from Chicago to Montana. And it's actually, they had their first copper pot still delivered to their distillery in 2008, same as the last one, opened up in 2008. And they are the first distillery in Montana in 100 years. So they're actually getting pretty popular. The grains that they use are grown super locally. So just like the Koval, it's the same kind of idea. They want to go grain to glass. So from the very bottom all the way up, they are involved and have control of almost everything. So you get to choose all their ingredients and everything else. It's kind of the trend in a lot of these smaller craft distilleries now, is they want to be able to control everything to get exactly what they want out of it. So this one, it's made from spring wheat, which is supposed to be less grainy, smoother, easier to distill. If you want a quick little bit of trivia with this one, quick trivia, Roughstock, they're talking about bareback horse and bull riding in rodeos. It's called Roughstock. So this is a Montana through and through kind of whiskey. It's going to be finished in ex-bourbon casks, and then moves from there into new charred French oak casks. So because it's supposed to be a more delicate grain, it should have a lot of wood to it and a lot of smoke to it, and it should be pretty sweet, supposedly, with a lot of honey notes. So we're going to see what that is like now. So this, again, is Roughstock Montana Spring Wheat Whiskey. Yeah, that smells really sweet. Holy cow. Wow, that is honey. Wow, that is honey sweet. Holy crap. Wow, that's sweet and smoky. This has weird finish on it, but man, that's sweet. It's like drinking honey.
Not quite, but yeah.
Man, that is sweet. Holy crap. I mean, it's definitely you get a lot of initially up front you get a lot of kind of oaky, smoky woodiness to it, but all the way through the end of the finish is just honey sweet. Man, is that a sweet, sweet whiskey. That is.
It has more burn than the last one, but
This one comes in at 90 proof. So the last one is 80 proof. This one's 90 proof. So
makes sense that it has more burn.
yeah.
But it is very sweet.
Man, is
and
that.
It is really nice.
It leaves a lot of sweetness in your mouth too. A lot of sweetness. Like, wow.
The last one you left like fruit. This is just
Really
a light
sweet. Really sweet. Yeah. You get like a grassiness and honey sweet. So it's almost like if you got like a wildflower honey. That kind of wildflower honey or like clover honey. It tastes a lot like that with just a hint of smoke. Like it's weird.
It's very nice though.
It is nice. It's man, is it sweet. Like that is overwhelmingly honey sweet out of it.
See, and I don't think it's overwhelmingly sweet. I think it's like the perfect sweet, but I also prefer sweeter whiskeys.
Yeah, no, it's just totally different character than what you're probably used to out of whiskeys. Totally different. Very, very, very sweet.
It reminds me more of the rum cask whiskeys.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah, and it's I think it's almost sweeter than they are though.
Yeah, a little.
Like it's kind of and I think a lot of that has to do with the bourbon because bourbon's very sweet generally too, but yeah, that's like noticeably sweet on the end. Not bad though. Not bad. So then the last one in this set that we have of the weird grains is going to be the Dryfly straight Triticale, I think it's Triticale whiskey. And this one is pretty different. Triticale is a hybrid grain of rye and wheat. So it was developed in the 1800s as this idea that you're going to get a really flavorful grain that could grow in harsher climates than either of those was capable of growing in. So we'll see kind of what that does. Supposedly it's supposed to be really a good combination for whiskeys. The Dryfly guys that actually started this were apparently a pair of fishing buddies that just decided that they wanted to start a distillery in the Pacific Northwest while they were fishing. And then they did in 2007, the first legal distillery in Washington since Prohibition. So all three of these grain ones all kind of started right around the same time, and every single one of them was kind of their first during the rebirth of craft distilling in the United States. And this one, because it's made in the Pacific Northwest, it is again all locally sourced, everything else. So it should be fairly interesting. These particular ones are aged for 3 years in new American oak barrels. So whereas the last one, the Roughstock, is double aged in barrels, this one is single aged. It's only in new oak barrels. But it's supposed to be interesting. It's supposed to be very different. And this is, in fact, the only straight Triticale or whatever whiskey that exists. So other whiskeys use it as part of their blend. This is the only one that does exclusively it. Supposed to be good. We'll see what we get out of it. Smells really floral. Yeah, that finish is really freaking floral. Hits you with it. Woo! A little bit of spice and floral. It's like spicy lavender at the end. It's kind of weird. But spicy lavender on the end. It's very earthy, though. It is very earthy, like a rye would be. That earthy spiciness that you get out of a rye, but then you get that weird floral finish on it.
Yeah.
Which is...
interesting.
I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this one. I can't say it's bad, but... I don't know, the floralness with the spice combination just hits strangely.
Yeah.
And that's off of like an earthy orange. So
and when we say spicy, I mean actually spicy.
Right, you're getting true spice out of this one, which is a little weird, but yeah, it's.
But then it eases off immediately. It's kind of like your tongue feels like you've stuck like a jalapeno seed on your tongue, and then like magically took it off out of nowhere, and it no longer burns. Like
yeah,
it's really strange.
But it definitely leaves floralness there. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that one at all. The other two I can say I for sure like. This one, while not awful, I don't think I would ever go and try to find.
Right. I mean, I don't know if I'd buy it, but if that was the only thing available, I wouldn't be horribly upset either. I'd still drink it.
Yeah, it's not bad, but I can definitely understand why no one else uses straight Triticale as their grain. It's
interesting.
There are definitely notes there that you need something else to tone, and that. Yeah, no. All right, and now we have our main attraction, if you will. We now have our 5-pack of the basically impossible to obtain whiskeys. Lindsay's feeling the effects of the first 3 right now because we're doing all of these random, like rapid fire. So, the first one we're going to start with out of Asia and Oceania is going to be Rampur. Rampur Vintage Select Cask is actually their first ever export. Now, India is the #1 consumer of whiskey in the world. And the amount that they consume is, quite frankly, mind-boggling. But almost all of it is actually made out of, like, molasses, which, according to plenty of laws in Kentucky or in the European Union, isn't whiskey. But it more or less is whiskey by very broad international definition, and they make a lot of it. And this is not that. This is actually made out of a more traditional grain, but it's made from instead of a normal grain where let me look here what it specifically it says it is. It is a barley. It's a 6-row barley that grows in the foothills of the Himalayas. Normal barley that's used for whiskey is a 2-row barley, so that makes it different already. And on top of that, when you age whiskey in a very hot climate like India, you lose a lot more water, so you have to start with a lot more water. That alters the flavors. It also means that it distills much more quickly. So you get, or ferments much more quickly. So you get to distilling and bottling and everything very fast in comparison. This being made from a different grain and being made in a totally different climate is going to taste totally different than any whiskey you've ever had. So if you do manage to track down a bottle of Rampur, which they've only been exporting since 2016, so just a couple of years as of when I'm making this video. If you do manage to track one down, and I have no idea where you would track one down in the United States, but if you manage to, you are in for an experience. So here it is. This is Rampur, the first Indian whiskey I've ever had, and I gotta tell you, that aroma is like nothing you've ever smelled. It's not bad, but man, that is not what I would expect whiskey to smell like. That is really floral.
It's very sweet smelling.
Sweet and very floral, almost perfumey floral.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a little hesitant, but
I'm super excited.
we'll see here. Oh, wow, that gets weird.
Oh, that is very strange, but I kind of like it, I think.
That's weird.
Wow.
It gives you this quick kick in the nuts for a split second that I was not expecting based on the nose. Like, it changes character completely halfway through the swallow. Man, it's really strange. It's really creamy. It is. It's a creamy, very full-bodied mouthfeel kind of whiskey, and that's something I never thought I'd say about whiskey, that it had a full-bodied mouthfeel, which is weird. Not unpleasant on the end, but there's a transition where you get from the nose through the body, and just before you hit the finish, where there's this spice kick out of nowhere, and boy, does it hit you hard. It's like a friggin' like explosion of like curry in a dish. You know what I mean? Like, it just out of nowhere, you're like, oh wow. Yeah. But the finish stays forever too. It just lingers there, and it's not unpleasant, I have to say. The finish is another one of those orchard fruit things with this weird kind of floral creaminess, and I realized none of those descriptions make sense together. But you ever get a chance to drink this, and I can tell you, it'll make sense.
I disagree a little on how it hits my mouth, anyway. It's more fruity up front. Then it has the kicky in the balls moment. And then it goes back to sweet with this very clearly wood flavor. Like, it's more smoky, yeah, but not in a, like, charred way. Like that fresh wood when you, like, if you go into a humidor, that smell that you smell, that's what I'm tasting.
Yeah, I can see that, yeah.
But it is sweet still at the end.
And and the best way that I can describe it is it tastes exactly like you would expect a whiskey from India to taste, is the best way it tastes kind of like India. I realize that sounds super bizarre, but Scotch tends to taste Scottish, in my opinion. You get flavors of peat and smoke and things that you would expect from Scotland. Irish whiskey tends to taste Irish. You get this, you still get peat, but it's a little sweeter and things. Whiskeys and bourbons from Kentucky, they have a specific flavor. All of these places, Japanese whiskeys have a specific flavor. What I'm learning, having all of these whiskeys from all these places, is they tend to have flavors that just sort of kind of make sense for where they're coming from. That distilled wine, the grappa that I had, tasted like Tuscany in the afternoon. Is the only way I can describe that one. This kind of tastes like rural India a little bit, like you kind of expect rural India to be, I think. Yeah, it's weird. It's a single malt, by the way, so it is a single malt. But
I think I like it.
I don't know. I'm not sure if I like it or dislike it. I don't know. I'll know by the end of that vial, but for the purposes of this video, one taste first. So, but I don't know. That one's different. Very, very. Alright, and now in our saga of Asian whiskeys, we come to a country whose whiskey I actually really enjoy, which probably makes me a heretic among many of the Scottish and Irish whiskey faithfuls, but Japanese whiskey. And I have discovered that I love Japanese whiskeys, in particular a few, but one of them is in fact from Nikka. And Nikka is interesting because Masataka Taketsuru, who founded the distillery in 1934, he actually learned how to distill and make whiskey in the Highlands of Scotland. So that's where he actually learned. So all of their whiskeys are a Japanese take on Scotch. So keep that in mind. Not entirely a heretic, all right? They pick up on that, and it's all considered a Highland style, by the way, of whiskeys when they're judged at national or international competitions. It's all classified actually as Highland whiskey category, even though it's not truly a Highland whiskey because it doesn't match the geographical location. But this particular whiskey is incredibly important for Nikka. The original super rare old was made in 1962, and some of that original went into this. It's completely unobtainable, so if you ever want to get your hands on it, too bad you can't. But I'm going to taste test it anyway, because it's part of this taste tester, and I'm super curious. But this whiskey, in 1961, Taketsuru's beloved wife, born Rita Cohen, actually in Scotland, where he met her and they bonded over whiskey, and then they married and she came back with him. She died in 1961, and Taketsuru decided that his tribute to her would be to distill a super special whiskey from only his oldest reserves, and in tribute to her. And in 1962, he released that. It became fairly world famous, and you still find bottles of the original 62 distilling coming up for auction periodically if you're the kind of person who goes to high-end liquor auctions. And if you are that kind of person, let me know, and I would like to join you sometime at one of those auctions and give you pointers on which ones you should go after. But that's neither here nor there. What's important, though, is that they got their hands on a bottle, they went back and they looked at it, and then recreated the same whiskey again, and blended in some of the original 62. So they only did a couple of casks, or like one cask of this. It's super, super rare, super, super expensive. I tell you the price of this bottle if it was still on the open market today, but chances are you don't want to know. So that's about what you're looking at there. But in the Japanese fashion, I will murder the living crap out of the pronunciation of this. Watashi wa anata no kenko ni nani nomimasu. Yeah, I murdered that, but it's I drink to your health. And so this is the celebration of Rita Taketsuru. And so we'll see what this ridiculously rare Japanese whiskey tastes like. Smell-wise,
smells like most
Japanese. That's a friggin' whiskey. I mean, that's about all I can say about it. It's nothing super remarkable on the scent, but let's see what the flavor is. Whiskey, Highland whiskey, definitely a Highland whiskey, but really smooth. Velvet. Man, that's... I'm not going to say it because then people will lynch me, but as good as most Highland whiskeys I've ever had. Easily as good as. The finish on it is wonderful, actually.
It's like maple syrupy almost?
Yeah, it's... Man, the finish on that is what I can only describe as weird, but delicious. Yep, it's supposed to be roasted and oak on the end, and that's all I'm getting. Yeah, that, you know what? That is just a whiskey, is the coolest thing about it. There's nothing, like, if I didn't tell you, if I gave you that, and I didn't tell you that it was a Japanese whiskey, you'd never know. You'd never know. If I told you that was Scotch, and a good Scotch, you would believe me. You'd never have a reason to think anything else, because that's what it tastes like, is a really good Scotch. A really good Scotch, like a really mellowed, non-peated, single malt Scotch.
Yeah.
That is not bad, and that's why I love that distillery, because it's completely unexpected, because the guy who founded it, well, he was Japanese, and he's distilling in the mountains of Hokkaido. Everything about it is Scottish. and it's great. And I love their whiskeys. Yeah, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, again, can't have it. So sorry. Even if you were in Japan. All right, so now we have a couple of back-to-back Taiwanese whiskeys, which admittedly is a little weird. When I think Taiwan, I think cheap toys. I don't think whiskey for sure, but they are fairly new to the whiskey game, but they are there. And this one, the first one that we're going to do of the two, is Kavalan. I'm probably mispronouncing that. Kavalan? Probably Kavalan. I don't know. I don't speak Thai, so I have no idea. Taiwanese? Is it Taiwanese? I don't know. I don't even know. But I don't speak it, so I don't know. But it's apparently named for the tribe that originally lived in Yilan County in Taiwan, which is obviously where the distillery has been since 2008. And this particular one has actually won a bunch of awards. It is called Concertmaster Port Cask Finish because it's initially aged in American oak, virgin American oak, and then transferred to a port cask for a year after that. But it won Best in Class in 2011 at the International Wine and Spirit Competition, and won gold from the Beverage Testing Institute in 2013. It won gold a few other places. This one is apparently pretty award-winning, and for a Taiwanese whiskey, which I've never had, that's kind of the trend with a lot of these, I'm very, very curious. It's supposed to have a lot of tropical notes, so we'll see what kind of tropicalness we get out of it. But scent-wise, it smells really sweet. Really, really sweet. It smells very port-y, is the only way I can describe it. So we'll see kind of what we get out of this and go from there. The nose is interesting. Yum! I really like the finish on that. That's quite lovely.
I really like all of it.
Interesting on the nose. Once you start hitting the body, though, you do get tropical fruit, and then you get coconut on the finish, which is the weirdest freaking thing I think I've ever tasted. And then you just end with port. This nice port finish.
I really like that, and I don't normally like anything out of a port.
It is a really complex flavor, too. This is a very complex flavored whiskey. I gotta say, I'm really surprised at just how complex it is. And not complex in a bad way or complex in, like, a lot of times, you'll get a whiskey and they say, oh, it's a complex flavor, and by complex they mean you have both wood and smoke. Yay! This is legitimately complex. You have a bunch of weird fruit, like tropical fruitiness to it. You get some smokiness to it. You have the coconut, which is definitely, the coconut and port at the end is a odd combination, but not unpleasant by any stretch of the imagination. That's nice.
I understand why they got first.
Yeah.
That's freaking amazing.
That, as far as I can tell, those judges absolutely called it. That is a very, very good whiskey. Unfortunately, probably, if you can find it in the United States, you're only mostly going to find it on the West Coast, and mostly California, to be honest with you. You're probably not going to find it anywhere else. But if you are on the West Coast and you feel like tracking some down, it is absolutely worth tracking down. That one is really good. Really, really good. This boat. Alright, and now we have the other major Taiwanese spirit. So there are two major spirits come out of Taiwan as far as whiskeys go. One is Kavalan, which we just did. And the other is this one, Omar. Omar is from Nantou Distillery, which is a Taiwanese state-run distillery. But it is, apparently, they do two types of whiskey. One they age in bourbon barrels, and one they age in sherry casks. And this happens to be sherry cask. It's kind of funny because it is made from The whiskey itself is made from Scottish grain, so imported Scottish grains on a Scottish-made distilling pot. So everything about it is Scottish except for the fact that it's being distilled in Taiwan, which is interesting. And then it's like English sherry casks. So you have a very European whiskey being made in Taiwan, and apparently because it's so warm, they can only actually distill from October to April. So they only have a little bit of time that they can actually distill anything, and this is supposed to be very, very good and very, very fruity. And again, like I keep saying throughout this, as you taste whiskeys from different parts of the world, they taste exactly like you think that a whiskey from that part of the world should be. The Kavalan is definitely no exception, so we'll see what the Omar gives us. So the scent on it, the aroma, is still whiskey, but weird. You definitely get sherry out of that scent, and oak. You're definitely getting oak. But all right, here we go. Velvet smooth. Yep, dark chocolate is there for sure. And orange. I'm definitely getting dark chocolate and orange out of that. And it is velvet.
It's that weird beginning like the last one was. Where it's really smooth, really sweet, but not overly so. And then a little bit of burn, and then all of a sudden, that really nice, almost hearty is the only way I can think of saying it, finish.
Yeah. Well, I think you get a lot of oak. You do get a little bit of cinnamon there on the head, or on the nose of it. You get a little bit of cinnamon, and then it goes into this wonderful orange, mandarin orange, dark chocolate finish on the end of it, and it's really nice. It's not overwhelming. It's not super in your face, but it is fruity. It's dark chocolatey. That's a nice sipping whiskey. It's
the previous one, just a little bit more.
Yeah, I think the Kavalan's definitely better, and the Kavalan actually is the top one. This is number 2, so. But yeah, I gotta say that is definitely good.
We need to start importing.
Yeah. Hey, America, get on that. Start importing Taiwanese whiskeys, because apparently they're really good. Yeah, they're apparently very nice. And yeah, that's velvet smooth, really orangey, really fruity, with chocolate to it, and it's really nice on the end of that. That is a nice sip. So you get a dram of that and just sip on it, and you're gonna enjoy yourself. I mean, that would go well. That would go well with a really good cigar, like a nice Romeo y Julieta.
On the rocks, really cold.
Yeah.
It would be amazing.
Yeah, that would be nice, and like a nice white linen shirt with maybe a Panama hat, since it's Taiwan, But yeah, that would be nice. I think that is definitely something that I would say I have no problem ever buying if I can ever find it. Either one of those Taiwanese whiskeys. So Kavalan and Omar are the two, and they are quite good. If you ever want to find Kavalan, it's going to be in a green bottle, very tall with a silver top. It says Kavalan on it. And the Omar is going to be in this lovely, much more traditional clear bottle with kind of a traditional looking label on it. I can't give you prices because I can't find it in the United States anywhere near me, so I have absolutely no idea if it's even available in the United States. And you might not be able to find it here at all, as a matter of fact, because I don't know that it's exported at all. But should it be? And should you be able to convince somebody who's an importer to bring it in, based off of my recommendation, go for it, because that's what I'm doing. I'm sacrificing my taste buds, potentially, to bring you the flavors of whiskeys that you will probably never actually be able to have. So, But it is really good. It is really good if you ever get a chance to find either one of those Taiwanese whiskeys. They are absolutely worth tracking down because they are good. They are very good. I am super impressed so far. So. Alright, so for our last one for this video, we go to the land down under. And actually, not just the land down under, but the land under the land down under, Tasmania, specifically. Australians spent 160 years without being able to actually make whiskey. It was illegal to make whiskey in Australia because, Australia hates freedom. I think we all kind of know that. And in 1992, the law changed, and they were finally able to start distilling again. And since then, 20 separate distilleries have popped up, and about half of them have been in Tasmania. Now, the Hellyers Road Distillery is on the north end of Tasmania. It's named for Henry Hellyer, who actually is the guy who surveyed Tasmania. And it was established in 97 by a dairy company, of all things. So, like, hey, guys, oi, we know cows. I can't do an Australian accent, but, oi. So, they decide we know cows. Why don't we make whiskey? Because that's a perfectly logical progression. Why wouldn't you? Yeah, But so they did that. Or would it be goats, maybe? It is Tasmania. I don't know. Whatever. But the important point is that they were a dairy, and they started making liquor. And this particular one, now keep in mind, we're talking about 1997 when this thing starts. It's 2018 now. So we're only 21 years later. This is a 10-year-old single malt. So they're only a decade in. This whiskey is literally half as old as the company. So we'll see. It's got a beautiful peated aroma to it. It is partially peated. So there's that. Single malt and peated. So it's going to be Scottish to a certain extent. It's going to have a Scottish character to it. And considering that most of the initial immigrants, if you want to call them immigrants, to Australia were Scottish and Irish, it would make sense that their whiskey would kind of follow that. So you're going to be hearing about a taste test on Hellyers Road 10-year-old single malt whiskey, which I am told is best poured neat and several hours before consumption. We didn't have hours, but we had a good half hour to let her sit. So we'll see. It's definitely changed character sitting open for that time period. So just already in the aroma, the smoke's coming out, the peat smoke. So hopefully this is representative of it. It's the best I'm going to be able to do, but it is our last one for the night. So here we go with the Australian whiskey, Hellyers Road. Holy smoke, Batman. Wow.
Weird.
Whoa, that's strange.
All of a sudden it's meat.
I can't say it's unpleasant.
It tastes like I'm suddenly sucking on jerky.
Which is why I can't say that it's unpleasant. Yeah. That is a manly whiskey.
I do not want the rest of this.
Well, there you again. This is a wow.
I mean, it's good. I just only in a sip. A sip is good. That's it.
Yeah.
I
wow.
can't do more than that.
Definitely getting maple. They say that it's supposed to have maple in it, and I'm definitely getting maple now in the finish. But it's like if you were burning a sugar maple.
Yeah.
That's basically what you're getting. Like, imagine you cut down a sugar maple, and now you're burning it for firewood. You're going to get a little bit of the mapley flavor out of that. That is what you're getting.
Mostly, I feel like I'm sucking on buckskin.
Man, that is the kind of thing. You know what? This is the kind of whiskey that you would drink in the Outback out of a tin cup. That is
Yes.
definitely what this tastes like.
Yes.
This is a. This is definitely a. Oi, watch out for that roux. Okay, that sounded weird, but
Really
I
awful.
really can't do Australian at all. But the yeah, this is the kind of like I'm on a roux hunting expedition with my air gun probably because Australian gun laws, but I'm on a roux hunting expedition. I have a tin cup and I have this whiskey, and this is the kind of whiskey you would be drinking. Like,
especially if you haven't eaten all day, that's all you need right there. It's a meal,
you know, and
in a glass.
to be fair, this is aged in American bourbon casks, actually from Buffalo Trace. So these are Buffalo Trace casks, and then a Scottish style peated single malt whiskey that goes into that. So it's about as like testicular fortitude a distillation as you can possibly achieve. It tastes that way. It's smoky and meaty and just kind of in your face and really bold. But there's a little bit of maple to it, which is really nice. And I can't say that I dislike it. I can say that I would never mix this with anything.
No.
I definitely say that the longer that it sits after pouring, probably the better, because the smokiness will mellow a bit. And the maple comes out more. But this is definitely not a I want to have a cocktail whiskey. This is a I'm going to sit down with a tin cup full of whiskey and drink next to a campfire kind of whiskey. And
it's not a take a shot of it either.
Yeah, and I wouldn't try to shoot this. This is sipping.
Yeah, that was what I think I made the mistake of. I totally tried to shoot that.
I don't even need to threaten to punch you if you try to shoot this, because it will punch you for me. This is not gentle, but I don't think it's unpleasant. I'm sure you do.
I don't like bourbon. Like, I don't like Kentucky bourbons, though.
Man, that is...
Which is where I think the reason I'm not a huge fan of that one.
Mapley smoke. It's what it is. It's mapley smoke that you get out of that for the most part. Maybe a hint of vanilla, maybe a hint of sweetness, but mostly it's a maple sweetness and smoke. So, you know what it is I'd imagine it's what you would get if you made those maple candies over a campfire.
And then maybe stuck some jerky in it.
No, just over a campfire you made the maple candies. That's what I think it would taste like. Like you're getting that off of the peat. It's peated. It is a peated, or partially peated, I think. But
I don't know. I really feel like I was chewing on buckskin, so I'm really probably a bad judge of that.
Yeah, that is a. All right, so that is 8 separate whiskeys. 3 from the United States, from various places, all craft distilleries using alternative grains. 5 from very strange places for whiskey for most people in the United States. All of them are pretty awesome, in my opinion. I don't think we had a single one that I disliked truly. Definitely enjoyed everything that I had. So what was your favorite of the entire bunch? So all 8 of them, your absolute number one pick, if you could, assuming you could find it in the United States. Because 5 of these you maybe not, probably not, but you might. If you could pick any one of these that you would want a bottle of, which one would you pick?
It's a tie between the first Taiwanese one and then the very first one out of this bottle, or this black box. The Rampur.
So between the Indian, the Rampur, the Rampur vintage select cask, and the Kavalan.
Yeah, but I think if I had to make a choice
Concertmaster.
between those two, I'd do the Kavalan.
I'm leaning towards the Kavalan being my absolute top. I think though that it's between the Kavalan Concertmaster and going back to our grain ones, the very first one out of the gate. Actually, that was the which one was the that was the Koval millet.
That one was really good.
The
too.
Koval millet. I gotta say, probably that and the Kavalan. If I had to pick between the two, I don't know that I would be able to. However, I know that I can get the Kavalan. And that it's a reasonable price. So I think the Kavalan for price has got to win out, but or the Koval for price has got to win out, but the Kavalan for flavor probably beats it. I think the last one, the Hellyers Road. If you are a traditional Scottish peated whiskey person, you will absolutely love it. I enjoy it. I think that if I was going to bring a bottle of whiskey out hunting, if I was going to a hunting cabin and I was going to bring a bottle of whiskey, that is a bottle of whiskey I would be perfectly comfortable bringing for once a year for hunting out in a cabin. Or like if I'm hitting the Rockies and I'm going up, and I'm going after elk in October.
Just camping in general.
That's the kind of whiskey that is. I think the two Taiwanese ones, the Kavalan and the Omar, are just great all-around whiskeys, but especially when it's warmer out. Mm-hmm. I think if you're going, if it's warmer, if you're hitting summer, that would be the time for those. They're very, very good. They're light. They're nice. Same with the Rampur, really. It's definitely more of a summer whiskey, I think. The Nikka is just a really good whiskey. Generically, whether it's Japanese or not, it's just really, really good. It just sucks that you can't get it anymore, anywhere, ever. That's unfortunate. But if you are somebody who's so inclined as to go into an auction and get one, if you track one down, you will not be disappointed. I can tell you that. It's a good whiskey. The other three, all three of them, I think, are palatable. The first two, so the Koval Millet and the Roughstock wheat, the Montana Spring wheat, I think those are really good all the time whiskeys. Those are definitely more than good enough to be your go-tos. And I think they'd be really, I personally, I would say they're great to have sitting around in a bar to have for when friends come over, and be like, hey, have you ever tried a whiskey made out of whichever grain, and then have them try that, and I guarantee they'll be pleasantly surprised. And it's an up-and-coming kind of new thing, so if you're kind of a liquor geek like me and you really like the weird alternative stuff, then it's definitely right up your alley. The Triticale from Dryfly, that is not... I think if any is going to be the bottom of the heap, I think that's probably the bottom.
Yeah.
For this round. Is probably that one. I definitely didn't like the flavor profile of that, the way that I don't think it presented itself. Maybe I'm going to try again with it later on. With it, having had it breathe and being poured neat, and try it in a proper glass and things, and let it sit for a minute and see where we go. But I have a feeling it's not going to get any better. So that's if there was any one that I wouldn't recommend, it would be that one. I would say stay away from that one. The other 7, absolutely, if you can get your hands on a bottle, all 7 of them are worth tracking down and getting on your tongue at least once, because they are very good. But I mean, you agree with that assessment that that's the worst, probably the bottom?
Yeah, I mean, one. Very closely followed by the last one we just had, but that's also just because it was too bold. I think that's my problem with it. It was just too bold.
The Hellyers definitely will kick your ass. I'll tell you that much. That one will kick your ass, which is what I like about it, though. But yeah, overall, I think this was a absolutely worth waiting a good couple of weeks to get this stuff after I requested it and from Slovenia. And I mean, it had to make its way across Europe and then across the Atlantic Ocean and then halfway across the United States. So it took me a while to get my hands on this stuff, but absolutely worth doing. So hopefully I'll be able to track down some other new ones in a little while here and do some taste tests for some other stuff. See where we go from there. And anyway, that's my latest video on my taste test. Hopefully you guys learned something interesting and enjoyed it. And maybe, you know, if you have any input or anything else, if you've tried any of these yourself ever, and you've had them, and you have any maybe recommendations or how I should drink it, if maybe there's something I should mix it with like water. Green tea is something that, you know, I've thought about with the Taiwanese ones. Might be good, and with the Indian one, that one with green tea might be interesting. But anything else that you guys come up with, you know, for, hey, maybe try this liquor or whatever, and let me know. Hit me up in the comments, and